Hi everyone, today let's talk about Tesla earnings, and then we'll get into all the usual data and charts. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So Tesla reported disappointing earnings. Second quarter revenue grew by 2%, which is not terrible, but it is below expectations. Earnings per share 52 cents versus 62 cents. Revenue 25.5 billion versus 24.77. So revenue is still doing fine. It did increase by 2%. Automotive sales dropped by 7%, but the biggest piece here is that earnings miss, so the bottom line not great. And then a quick look at Google. Revenue up 14% year over year, surpassing the $10 billion quarterly and $1 billion operating profit for the first time. Earnings per share $1.89 versus $1.84. Revenues also beating $84.74 billion versus $84.19 billion. Advertising revenue $88.6. They did miss on YouTube advertising. That's what I think we're seeing most in the price of Google right now. We did see some dips after the announcement. You can also see that revenue growth did step down slightly from Q1, so got a rise here. Now we might be seeing a little bit of a continuation lower, something like this. And if that is what we're seeing, we could see Google go lower. Shares were up about 1%. I think that's pulled back slightly. And like they mentioned here, YouTube being the big miss. I'm sure we'll get more information out of the earnings call. Moving over to fear and greed, we did get one step up here to 56 from 55. So basically flat. Volatility, momentum stepping down just slightly closer to that SMA. Back into greed there as well. And then looking at strength, back into neutral. We haven't seen that in a long time. And then breadth still hovering in fear. Put call ratio, it's grinded higher into regular greed. And then market volatility, no change there, still in fear. Safe haven demand still in fear. And then junk bond demand, no change there either. Moving over to seasonality, you can see this is supposed to be a little bit of a bearish period here for today and tomorrow. We're not really seeing that right now. Maybe we got the dip early over the 3 days at the end of last week. So we'll see how that plays. Maybe we're in this just a little bit early, slight grinding upward price action. Just keep it in mind, expected to be slightly bearish. Moving over to the earnings calendar, you can see the beat by Google. Tesla missed on the bottom line. Visa missed on the top line, beat on the bottom. Coke beat on both as they do. General Electric missing on revenue, interesting. Comcast also missing on revenue. Lockheed beating on both. Earnings beat pretty handily there by about 70 cents. And then looking at tomorrow, don't forget we still have Qualcomm, Thermo Fisher, IBM, Services Now, AT&T, NextEra Energy, Waste Management, General Dynamics, Chipotle, CME Group, and then for Thursday, AbbVie, AstraZeneca, Honeywell, Northrop Grumman, Valero, Royal Caribbean. The cruise stocks have been more interesting here recently. We've talked about them a little bit, and that'll wrap it up for the next couple days. Moving over to the economic calendar, existing home sales did miss by about 100,000. Interesting. You can see that 5.4% decline there. 2-year yield coming in about 0.3 lower. That was expected. That's basically flat here. And then looking at Wednesday, we do have some economic data. S&P Global US Manufacturing, Global Composite PMI, Services PMI, new home sales, and then the 5-year note auction. And then if you hold anything overnight tomorrow, you're also going to get PCE prices, GDP, durable goods orders, all coming out at 8:30. Moving over to Max Payne, step down here to 553, stock price 553.96, so just barely above it. Seems like we're going to get a Max Payne finish. At this point, 1 million options, put call ratio hasn't moved. Call wall still 565, put wall kind of 550, but closer to 545. So still a little bit of downside room, a little bit of upside room, anywhere between 551 up to 557, 558 makes sense. And that is the range that we're already trading in. So not expecting a ton of movement based on this chart. Moving over to the chart, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we did hit that trend line again, pulled back a little bit there after hours, getting a little bit of a bounce. That last candle of the day was selling. Pretty strong candle down, decent volume, nothing crazy. Still holding that 55 EMA at 552.99. Need that zone to hold if it's going to do it. Momentum slightly bearish here. This looks like a breakdown retest, potential for a breakdown here, so that's not great. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. Hit the 9 EMA, rejected from there, so everything kind of says this might be a little bit bearish tomorrow based on the current structure. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see very similar thesis. Breakdown, retest of that 8 EMA, starting to break back down a little bit. ATR support is going to be that 548.76 level. You also got the 34 EMA EMA sitting right there at 547.39. So if this breaks down through that 21 at 552, then we're probably headed to 547. Otherwise, maybe we see some grinding price action. Momentum still bearish on the volume weighted MACD. And then looking at that 4-hour chart, no change to conditions, still bearish conditions here. Did try to break a little bit on the 7 o'clock candle, gave it all back on the 11 o'clock candle. So we're still in this consolidation, mixed conditions between the 4-hour and the daily. But at this point, it seems like we're probably headed back down to that 144, which is right in that same range we talked about at 549.31. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis. Big move up yesterday, sideways choppy price action today. Did dip on the last candle, volume was really small, bouncing a little bit after hours, nothing crazy. Was negative on the day, 0.35, but bounced about $1 after hours. Momentum still could be swinging to bullish. RSI broke down just a little bit more. So that 481.94 level, got above it yesterday, gave it back today. Looks like a breakdown retest. Still 477.69 could be support after we broke that on Friday, gapped through it and rallied into Monday. So again, looks like consolidation. You have some levels to work with. 55 EMA there on the hourly is 479.84, so right in that same zone. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see we are right in this zone. If it's going to hold, it needs to hold that 34 EMA at 479.44. It is holding it right now. Momentum here on the daily chart is still technically bearish, but you can also see the ATRs here on the daily chart. They're not really trending. They are moving sideways right now, so you could get more sideways action. And then looking at the 4-hour chart, we did have a bit of a downtrend, and now we flattened out a little bit. You can see upper ATR flat, lower ATR slightly trending down, but also flat. Momentum here slightly bullish. You can also see basically no volume on the day compared to what we had been seeing. So we'll see how it plays. If that mid zone breaks at 480.19 right here, middle ATR band, if that breaks down, we're probably headed to the lowest one there, around that 468.79 level, but it hasn't done it yet. We're still in this grinding sideways price action, waiting for some more clear direction. And it's also worth noting both of the daily and 4-hour charts are in bearish conditions with that ATR resistance at 488.29. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, we did get that second day push here on the Russell. 226.06 is the next level. It is up a little bit more after hours. Momentum hasn't pushed yet. RSI still pushing. And the Dow down 0.16. Still consolidating right at that 9 EMA. Did close below it here at 404.36. Price is 403.14. So probably going to fall down to VWAP there at 399. My level 398.76. This still looks weak. And clear divergence between the Russell and the Dow. Moving over to stocks that moved, we got ARM Holdings jumping almost 5%. It's holding this 163.04 level. You can see middle of this consolidation. If we can break here, fill the gap and push towards that all-time high, that would be 187.50. Looks like we're getting a move. Momentum swinging to bullish. Our side's got a little bit of room until we hit that SMA. Then we'll see what happens there. So a bit of a swing, trend resistance up around 183. Again, gives you about $10 a move there. And then MSCI, not super familiar with this company, but they jumped 7.9%. You can see this grinding higher low price action. 507.98 was the level right at this peak from 16 July, broke that. And then it gapped through a bunch of these. So we'll see what happens here. Hit the level all the way up at 564. Could see some pullbacks, some gap fills, something like that, but huge move. Usually you get some kind of continuation eventually on this. Momentum, obviously bullish. Not a ton of volume on this kind of upswing, but super overbought. And you can see this stock is actually quite choppy. So it pulls back to 460, rallied here to 600, pulled all the way back to that same level, round trip that move. So could be seeing another one of those swings up back to that 600 area. Little sleet. Moving over to the Mag 7, did get a slight move higher, 0.12. Momentum still holding. RSI still weak. Basically flat. Still stuck at that 21 EMA as resistance at 273.98. So we'll see what happens. We did get the dip low. We're retesting this kind of consolidation. If this pulls back, probably down to 265. It is down a little bit after hours with the Tesla and the Google earnings. So see how it plays. Looking slightly bearish. Very similar setup to the S&Ps in my opinion. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple still sideways choppy, 0.47. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, basically no volume. Microsoft got a step higher, 0.43. We talked about it looking a little bit better than Apple yesterday. And sure enough, we hit that 9 EMA at 446.72. See if we can push that trend up around 452.57. If not, we're probably pulling back down to the trend here around 436. And honestly, it could go either way. It does look slightly bullish in price action, but that is a big wick, which usually indicates we might be seeing a reversal. If you get a confirmation down, probably headed down to that 436 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla was down 2% on the day, and then it's down way more after hours. You can see it's down about $10 or so, $11. And then NVIDIA, 0.77. We're rallying up to this resistance. I still think we're going to break lower. Haven't touched that 55 EMA yet, which is now at 115. I still think we're going to get there at some point. And if that breaks, you got trend support down around the 108 area. Let's look at this after hours. You can see those big down candles. You can see that same consolidation we've been in. 232.57 is the level. You can see the consolidation of EMAs. So this is now a bearish structure, at least on the short time frames. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. It's already oversold at a 26.29. Let's look at that on the 12-hour. Clear consolidation. Clear zone of support. 12-hour 55 EMAs down at 221.58. Maybe that's something relevant in there. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. You can see RSI had been weakening consistently after that big move higher and that hit and that price target touch there at the trend line before we broke down. So we'll see how it plays. Definitely looks a lot more bearish after this earnings and could see more follow through to the downside. Moving over to Meta and Google. Meta up 0.26. Google down 1.47 on the after hours candle. Let's look at it on the day. It was slightly positive, 0.14 to the upside. Momentum looked okay. We're coming off of this trend, hitting that 21 EMA, very similar setup to what we've been seeing across the board. It looked pretty strong here. So you had a big rally. All-time highs here around 192. Bounced the trend, rallying up, structure still bullish, but the earnings was not great like we talked about. Had some weakening there. And you can see that initial wick down to the 175 area, bounced from there, and now we're down to the 181.60 area. Trend support right around 179.85 and 179.42, so could find some support there. And then Meta stuck on the level 489.67, closed below it, selling a little bit after hours. Probably a sympathy play due to the advertising weakness that we saw in Google. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. Staples grinding lower, 0.36. Nothing crazy. It's right at the SMA here on the RSI. So if it's going to bounce, it needs to do it here. It's also right at that 9 EMA, which is at 77.03. So right in that same range as the price action here. And then discretionaries falling after hours with Tesla going lower. Broke the level 189.38. So probably headed to the 21 EMA at 187.81. Momentum and RSI are both bearish. Moving over to financials and oil and gas. Financials are basically the only positive sector here, up 0.19. Probably going to retest that trend line here at 43.68. Momentum is still fading. RSI, it's right at the SMA here, but it is still trending higher. Could look for a little bit of a break. Similar to this move, big move down, test the SMA, get one more push higher before we see that bigger breakdown. So we'll see how it plays. Probably still going to be a lower high, but still could touch that trend there. And then oil and gas, big down day, 1.5%. So we've gotten 5 days in a row of downside. We're right back into the zone, and I did take a nibble. So I got a pretty good entry. I did sell an option when price was down around 143.20 or so. So pretty low, not right at the bottom, but pretty low. We were looking at this consolidation, and I did sell an option. I sold the 142 option for about 80 cents. So that's all the way down here with an actual buy price closer to 141.20 or so, which is actually right at these wick lows. We'll see how it plays. The level here is 140.88. If that breaks, then we're pretty much out. Momentum doesn't look great, but this is definitely getting extended. If you look at it on the hourly chart here, you can see the reason that I was looking at it was that hourly, when we were in that price range around that 143.20 area, you can see the RSI was at a 27.89, really, really low on the RSI. Deep cuts, hitting this consolidation. Seems like we got a little bit of a bounce from there. So I'll be watching it. Need to move this. I'll be watching, put my alert there around 143, see how it plays. But look at that volume. Huge volume coming in at the end of the session. Says it was selling pressure, so if it sells off, that would be interesting. But maybe this is a bottoming formation. We could see some grind and a slight pop. Moving over to oil and gold, you can see also regular oil going down 1.84. We're getting to these lows here from the 12th of May as well as the 8th of May, so we're at this low consolidation. If that breaks, probably headed down to 73. If it holds, we could see a bounce back up to at least the 80 area. And then gold. So far, we're holding the higher low, which is what we expected. Got a push up, 0.38, headed towards the level, 225.09, 9 EMA, 224.18. Think this is probably going to go higher. It's up a little bit more after hours. So gold potentially looking for a push. If that higher low setup holds, we get above this previous high here, then we should be looking for a higher high, maybe up in the 230 to 234 area. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon, these also had some pretty rough days at 5.31 and 9.6% to the downside respectively. RIOT still in this consolidation, still holding the 9 EMA, so still could go higher here. Marathon got a structural break, so we took out these lows. At this point, I'd be looking for a gap fill, which is down around the 2079 area, which is right at that 144 EMA. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. I would expect this to go lower. Is it going to test the bottom? Maybe. Still could hold a higher low in that 2073 area. Moving over to breadth. Both of these were down. Nothing crazy. No real change. 20-day still at the level. Still above it. Momentum and RSI bearish. I guess you could say the RSI broke down below the SMA. That's different. We hadn't seen that. And then similarly here, 50-day, touched the level, opened at the level, did sell off slightly. We're still above the SMA there, so should hold and then push based on what we're seeing, whereas 20-day breadth could start to break down a little bit more. Maybe we see 20-day breadth sell off a little bit more while the 50-day is holding, and then this follows through as a bit of a lagging indicator. Does happen sometimes. 20-day usually goes first, followed by 50, followed by 200. So maybe that's what we're looking at. 50-day hanging in there, 20-day starting to show some cracks. Moving over to the dollar here, you can see we did get a push higher. We are holding the level as support at 104.4. This does look like a bottom here now. Left shoulder, slight dip on the right shoulder. Now we're pushing 21 EMA up there at 104.9. If this starts to rally aggressively, that could be bearish for markets. So something to consider there. Dollar definitely showing strength. Momentum swinging to bullish. RSI swinging to bullish. Everything here says that the dollar should rally at least a little bit. Moving over to yields just for a moment, the only thing I really want to highlight here is that 10-year yield was down 0.02, where the 2-year yield was down 0.62. They had their auction, so that settled here. Momentum slightly bullish, but it's rejecting off this trend, and you can see the clear divergence. 2 years selling off, 10-year holding the price. We continue to go towards those normalized conditions. We're pretty close here now, within 0.25%, 4.25 here on the 10-year, just below 4.5 here on the 2-year. Moving over to J&K and TLT. J&K continuing to try to go higher. Makes sense with the Russell trying to go higher. It's right at the level. Hasn't closed above that yet at 95.61. The last time we were above that price action was all the way back here in August of 22. So J&K really trying to get above there. TLT, on the other hand, selling off a little bit. Just 0.14, momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Think we're going to hit that 21. 200 SMA at 92.14. See how that plays after that. Go ahead and extend out this trend here. If that structure breaks, you might find some support around 91.32. At this point, this is looking more like a consolidation here. You still have a high and a low with consistently higher lows. And that low was also higher than this previous low here. But now it just looks like a big consolidation, looking to come to a point around that 92 area. Then we'll see what happens from there. Right now, TLT, I still look at it as a buying opportunity over the medium to long term, but short term looks a little bit bearish. Moving over to volatility, MOVE index continuing to gain. That's 4 days in a row of gains. Momentum continuing to swing to bullish. So makes sense. TLT is probably going lower. And then the VIX. So it's still holding the level at 14.7, still holding the higher low. I still think we're going to get a bit of a spike higher. This is just the retest portion, and that portion can go on for a couple of days, so you still have to be patient, but the VIX is staying elevated as we continue into this earnings season, and I do expect it to push up to that 1850 area at some point. Otherwise, moving over to my accounts, I made a little bit of money on the day, so that was good. IWM continued to rally aggressive, rolled out here to 220 for 2 days from now, basically already at max profit there. It is up a little bit after hours, but not a lot. $2.82 is the credit, so just a couple of cents off of max profit there. And then we have the Qs. This has sold off a little bit after hours, down about $1.50. Really trying to get rid of those shares, I think, in tomorrow's session. I sold the 480 for $3 credit, so still looking to get out of that. And then I actually decided to go ahead and sell a strangle for tomorrow at 478 and 468. 2 credits on both of those. Might take that off early in the session, or if we can get a little bit of a bounce back into the middle of that, I might take it off. We'll see how it plays, but if this is the catalyst for more selling tomorrow, definitely going to be cautious. IV rank is a little bit high on the Q, so I was trying to get a little bit more of a credit on that. Might bite me a little bit tomorrow. And then you can see that option I sold on the XOP, a 142 for 84 cents. Sold it a little bit lower, got a little bit of a bounce, and you can see a small profit there. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of Tesla and Alphabet earnings. So far, not so good. Is the rest of big tech going to be this bad? And if it is, how far lower will markets go? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.